Lottery's gotta be done.
What we really need to do is that top.
That's what service.
Right.
Yep, and then you can just put it back on your, nope, nope, just on the white,
No, we'll
over
get
on
it.
the side.
Okay,
Yep,
thank
just right
you.
there. Perfect. There you go.
Hello, Lauren.
Good evening, Chris.
How are you doing?
I'm doing good. How are you?
Not too bad.
Thawed out, but not froze out.
No, that froze out yet. Found out Leon's your brother.
Yeah, Leon, my brother.
I'm not gonna hold that against you.
Oh, good. I was just gonna mention it. Please don't. That's my little brother.
That's what I heard.
Yep.
So Rich, is it pronounced Mueller?
I answered about anything.
One of my supervisors when I was a teacher and principal in Winona was Ev Mueller. Yeah, it was spelled the same, but I've heard it's pronounced Miller too.
My sister pronounced it Miller. I pronounce it
I
Miller.
noticed
Some
your
people
notes
pronounce
there.
it Mueller.
Yep.
Just right after 9.
Should we just
Flavor of the
do
day,
that
whatever you
without
want.
making mention of
Just
it,
so
or
you
do
know
we
how
have
you
the
like
agenda?
Exactly.
Sure,
Everyone
okay,
else really knows.
right, sure.
I think we were in this room when we did the strategic plan quite a few years ago.
That was in Ellendale.
That was in the element.
Yeah, I don't know that we were ever over here for that.
Okay,
I think we always met in Ellendale.
but it was a media center. I thought that we
Yep.
met in there too.
Yep.
Okay.
That would be ideal.
I was with MSBA. I was doing that.
Yes.
I've been doing some stuff with them over the years.
Yeah, because I think Jeff Olson.
Yep, Jeff Olson and I probably were partners there. So,
19, you said.
Yep.
maybe start with that.
There. All right, we'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Ms. Engel, could I ask you to do the roll call this evening, please?
Terry Engel, here. Joanne Maloney,
Here.
Rich Mueller,
Here.
Travis Ralph, Dan Schmidt,
Here.
Lauren Shanerock,
Here.
Rick Schultz.
Here. Thank you. We have an agenda in front of us this evening. Just a note in respect to Mr. Remy's time this evening, and we greatly appreciate him joining us. We are going to move number 11, the superintendent search profile, to right behind board member comments, so ahead of the consent agenda. So with that, I would entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Mueller, seconded by Mr. Schmidt to approve the agenda as presented. Ms. Engel, please.
Terry Engel, aye. Joanne Maloney,
Aye.
Rich Mueller,
Aye.
Travis Ralph, Dan Schmidt,
Aye.
Lauren Shanerock,
Aye.
Rick Schultz.
Aye. I don't believe we have any public comments this evening either, Dr. Carlson? No. So with that, we will move right into the report section, and that begins with Dr. Carlson also.
You have our written reports, and I'm just going to be sensitive to the time tonight and leave it to, if you have questions. I have nothing to add or to emphasize to the written reports, mine and also from the principals. So, but if you have questions. Thank you.
All right, with that then, we will go ahead and I think all the information and communications is pretty self-explanatory. Please get those important dates coming up on your calendars, and once again, you'll probably hear this quite a bit from Dr. Carlson and myself. Those participation is greatly encouraged through all of this, that we have good representation. So, oh yeah, and not to move too fast, but we have in that board member comments, were there any comments that want to be made by board members here before we go into recognition portion?
I have one comment, Mr. Schultz. before a basketball game one night, I was walking around the school, kind of looking into some of the rooms that work had been done on. I ended up in the fax room, and I was completely floored when I walked in there. When we talked about it, that's not what I was expecting. And Miss Dela Cruz happened to be in there when I walked in, and I think we talked for like a good 15 minutes about that room. So anybody gets a chance to walk down there, it's incredible.
Yes, well, thank you for sharing that, and we hope for a day where we can invite the public in and see the support that they gave us and what that was used for, because we are very proud of the updates that have been throughout the district, various areas. So thank you for bringing that up, Rich. Anyone else? With that, we'll go into the board recognition here.
Can I just make a few
Yes,
comments? I'm
please.
just going to, the Minnesota School Board Association has set February 22nd through the 26th as Minnesota School Board Recognition Week to build awareness and understanding of the vital function elected school board members play in our society. The NRHEG Public Schools is joining other public school districts from across the state to celebrate this week coming up to honor our local board members for their commitment to our school district and our students. So from the MSBA, strong schools help build strong communities, and our school board devotes countless hours to making sure our schools are helping every child learn at high levels. School board members make the difficult decisions every month and spend many hours studying education issues and regulations in order to provide the kind of accountability our citizens expect. And there are a number of key works that the board does in order to raise student achievement. Notably, a few of them: creating a vision for what the community wants the school district to be and for making student achievement the top priority. Establishing standards for what students will be expected to learn, ensuring progress is measured, being accountable for decisions, creating a safe, orderly climate for students and staff, forming partnerships with others in our communities, and focusing attention on the need for continuous improvement. So even though we are making a special effort to show our appreciation this month, school board members' work is a year-round commitment. Thank you to all former and current school board members for your high level of care and service to our students, employees, and communities. The current members serving our school district include Rick Schultz, Dan Schmidt, Terry Engel, Travis Rao, Joanne Maloney, Rich Mueller, and Lauren Shainrock. Board members, in recognition of your service, each board member is presented with a star crafted by our very own Sue Colson to symbolize how, as board members, the brightest stars are those who shine for the benefit of others. Ms. Dela Cruz, students made the star cookies for you to enjoy. And also each member is presented with a certificate of appreciation from MSBA. So you should have those on your table. And again, thank you. Mr. Schultz.
Thank you, and again, it's been a pleasure serving with each and every one of you, and I, same thing as Dr. Carlson has gone over, appreciate all the service that you've given to the district, so thank you for that. And Ms. Paulseth, thank you for all your hard work. That is very nice of you to do that, and to the students for the cookies, those will be a very popular hit with every board member, so thank you to everyone involved there. We are still honored to have you here, Harold, this evening. I'm just trying to rush into your presentation, but yes, once again, welcome to our district. Thank you for joining us in our very serious situation of trying to replace Dr. Carlson in the superintendency of NRHEG, and please tell us what you have for us this evening.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate being here, and on behalf of my partner, Ed Walpin, and I, we are pleased that you chose to use the South Central Service Co-op to monitor your search process. I also would like to share with you that board recognition is important, and as Dr. Carlson said earlier, you make many, many important decisions throughout a year, and several at each board meeting, and it's very much appreciated by everyone. So what I'd like to do is I have a packet that I left for you. Oh, before we go through the packet, just to update you a little bit about what's happening statewide in terms of superintendent vacancies. The superintendent vacancy, I think the first one I noticed posted was in December. And as of yesterday, there were 26 vacancies that have been posted. I think about 8 of those 26 are into their final phase. They're doing their final interviews, and some of them have already selected a person. So it's kind of moving along rather rapidly again now. At NRHEG, we have it closing on Friday of this week. At this point, we have 7 candidates that have applied with a possible number 8 candidate. Of those that we have 3 female candidates and 4 males, or maybe 5 males, depending upon whether or not another person decides to apply. And actually, we just got one in yesterday again. I wouldn't be surprised if we get in 1 or 2 more before Friday's deadline. So that's where we're at right now. What I'd like to do now is I'd like to move on to the packet that I have. Unless you have any questions, let's move on to that packet. And the first page in the packet is really the only action item that you need to do tonight officially. And that is, we'd like to have you officially adopt the desired attributes that you're looking for in the next superintendent. And basically, the skills on that list of 10 are pretty common from one district to another, but they also are reflective of the comments that have been made in your online survey. We obviously can't come up with attributes for every comment that's made on an online survey, and I think you've had a little over 80 people that have responded to that survey at this point. But some things that are on here are communication skills, being a team builder, having financial knowledge, being a strategic planner. And the fifth one is diversity and equity and inclusion. We'll talk about that a little bit in that's one of the new ones that's just popped up in the last year. I see by the MDE that report that you have about 7% of your population is diverse. If that's correct, I don't know, that's what I found on the MDE site. You also would be looking at number 6 for somebody that can be a motivator and a visionary, as well as having those characteristics of honesty and humility and those kinds of things. Some personality traits are included in there. And being a collaborator is someone who can work with community groups, businesses, and local businesses, and even governmental agencies, even statewide. Those 10 comments will be used as if you approve them, will be used as a part of our process for evaluating each candidate when they're interviewed. We'll have a form that will be filled out by the community committee, and they will rank how they're in the interview, how the candidate performs on a 3-2-1 scale for each of those, and that helps delimit the number of people that you will be considering for final candidates. So with that, I'll open it up for any discussion that you have in terms of any of the items that are on that list of 10.
Well, to me, it sounds like all things that we would be interested in seeing the next superintendent possess. So, yes, thank you for your work on that and putting that together. And do you want to continue, and then with the anticipation of approving these toward the end of your presentation?
Well, this is the only thing that really needs approval. The rest is going to be
Sure.
mainly discussion and feedback. So
I
you can
guess-
do it either
Sure.
at either time.
I guess it'd probably be the thing if there's any discussion that we want to have. Otherwise, we would entertain a motion to approve this profile if someone is comfortable making that motion.
Make a motion to approve the superintendent attribute profile as presented.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Schmidt, seconded by Mr. Schoenrock to approve the desired superintendent attributes as presented. Is there any further discussion? Ms. Engel? Excuse me, Joanne, did you have something to add there? I don't mean to rush you.
No, I'm fine.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Engel?
Terry Engel, aye. Joanne Maloney,
Aye.
Rich Mueller,
Aye.
Travis Rao, Dan Schmidt,
Aye.
Lauren Shanerock,
Aye.
Rick Schultz.
Aye. Motion carries. Okay, Mr. Remy, you can continue.
All right, if you go to the next page in your packet, item number 1, we have already approved the profiles, and thank you for that. The next thing would be to decide on a March 4th interview schedule start time. And actually, the page right after that, if you take a look at that, this is one that we have used recently in the 2 that we've completed already this year. A staggered start allows for some time for the candidates to be interviewed by both the community committee and the school board, and allows for time at the end of the day before it gets to be too late in having the board make a final decision. We can start and end this day at any time you want, okay? And we have 6 candidates. This is a 6-candidate interview schedule. We may have 4 that we would recommend. We may have 5, but we can't put all of those out right now. What I'm mostly interested in is, how do you feel about a start time and an end time? Traditionally, I will tell you that in the past years, we've usually started interviews by about noon. And if you have 6 candidates, you're still interviewing at 8:30, 9 o'clock. And then you have to have discussion, and then you have to make a decision about who to invite back for a second interview. I think it's easier to make a good decision earlier in the evening rather than later, so you might want to consider starting earlier. Again, this is the schedule that we ended up using at LeSueur Henderson when we went through their first round. And it starts with, there should be about a 15 to 20 minute in-service for both the community committee and for the school board. So we put in a half-hour time slot there. We would have the in-service then for the community committee between 8:30 and 9 o'clock on this. Then an hour interview with 15 minutes in between before the next interview for that candidate. So candidate A on here would interview with the community committee from 9 to 10, and would interview with the school board from 10:15 to 11:15. And you can follow through there. We also built in a little break, especially for the school board, after 3 interviews, take a break, and then have the final 3, if again we have 6. If it was going to be 4, we would have a break between 2. So give me some feedback in terms of, do you appreciate being through with the interview process a little earlier in the evening and your decision making? But if you're going to do that, then we have to start earlier in the day. Again, if we ended up with 4 people that we're going to interview, you could just back it off here by those first 2 times and start then, and still be on schedule for a decent time to be done at night.
In respect to the candidates, we will make that decision of how many we are interviewing on March 1st, correct?
That's right.
So obviously this could get adjusted at that time based off of the candidates.
That's true.
Is that respectful to the candidate on time-wise, as far as, well, I suppose they won't know until March 1st anyway.
Right. What we will do before March 1st is, if we think we're going to recommend 4 candidates, we will call all 4 of those candidates and say, we're going to recommend you for an interview. If it's approved, you need to have yourself free that day.
Okay.
And we won't give them a time at that
Sure.
point in time. But as soon as you've approved that on March 1st.
Then you'll,
First thing I do when I walk out of the room is
sure,
follow.
of course.
Yeah. And then they'll get an email that night before I go to bed saying
Sure.
your time is there.
Sure. Good.
So,
Thank you.
any other comments or thoughts about this?
Do you have the updated dates for the bottom of that?
Right. It says
Uh,
February versus.
It says February,
Oh.
because I know you used it.
Yeah,
You did it on the top.
that's right. I forgot to change that.
That's
That'd be
okay.
March. That'd be March. Thank you for catching
Is
that.
that March 10th and
Yeah.
11th?
9th and 10th,
Yeah,
actually.
March 9 and 10.
9 and 10
Okay.
March
versus-
9 and 10.
I think
Thank
the
you for catching that.
Second sheet is accurate of our timeline, I believe.
Okay.
I guess personally, I would like to come in and get it done and get out of here.
Sure.
Not to rush it, but
Right,
a lot of times you do your best thinking earlier in the day.
right. I guess I would leave that up to some of you that have a little bit more committed time schedules. And again, I know this is going to require some sacrifice as far as people with more detailed schedules, but if we could make that, I'll kind of look to you guys as how it works for work schedules. If this type of a start time, 8:30 to 9, again, if we get narrowed up on candidates, perhaps that can go to that 9:10 start time. Am I
Right.
talking out of turn there or not? But
Nope, that's right.
but I still think there's a value in getting started in the morning, if you guys are all comfortable. Miss Maloney?
Looks good to me.
Okay,
I'm guessing that you arrange these interviews such that whoever's traveling the furthest will be later in the day.
Probably. Sometimes those are traveling the furthest have come the night before, and they'll be here.
Okay,
And maybe want to get home.
right.
yeah. Very good.
But I think
So no,
there's,
I think that looks like a good plan.
good,
There's also a possibility, you have to remember this, there's also a possibility that I think you want to do the interviews in person,
right,
but there's a possibility the candidate doesn't want to interview in person for
Okay.
COVID reasons.
of course.
So we have to make that adjustment too. But then again, you plug that in virtually anyway.
Right. Sounds to me like we're feeling comfortable with this schedule, at least getting going in the morning.
Okay.
If it does indeed turn into 6 candidates, probably very close to this schedule,
Right.
adjust off from that if.
Okay.
So,
Good.
Thank you.
you. All right, then the next thing on here is February 24th and 25th. The application materials are going to be available here in the office for you to review if you'd like to. I'll bring them down on the 24th, most likely, and leave them with you. And she should be scheduling with you an hour to look at the folders for all the applicants, if you want to look at them. Some board members do, some board members do not. But you can easily look at, if there are 6 or 7 candidates, you can easily look at those within an hour. And you have to look at them one at a time, and you can't be talking about anything that you've seen with anyone in between, that kind of thing. So that's just kind of an announcement that's going to be there. I'll have it here on the 24th by noon, and I'll pick it up at the end of the day on the 25th or the 26th in the morning.
Are we allowed to make notes and take those?
You can take notes, yeah. You can take notes if you want to, yep.
Thank you.
All right, then, number 3, March 1, we approved the list of candidates for the round 1 interviews. A 2-step process. For data privacy, I will give you a sheet of paper that has the description of, again, we'll say 6 candidates, okay? Have a description of 6 candidates. They'll be labeled A, B, C, D, E, F, that kind of thing. You should approve that list. You approve that list, and then we will give you the names for each of those, okay? And the only reason that it's a 2-step process is if for some reason something on that ABC list you didn't want to have that person interviewed, then we need to remove that person from there and then that'll be, we'll have just one less candidate, or replace it with a different one. That's a possibility too. But generally speaking, that's always approved once we bring that list in. Then on March 4th will be the round 1 interviews. Will be held at the Arundel Elementary. Each candidate will be interviewed twice. Be interviewed by the community committee first, the school board second. The questions will be provided for both the community committee and the school board by us at South Central Service Co-op. Community committee members will all complete a feedback form which mirrors this profile that we talked about earlier. And then you see the makeup there of your community committee. That looks fine to us. At the end of the day, the school board then will receive their feedback forms, and that'll help you make a decision about who to invite back for round 2 interviews on March 9 and 10. Now we're saying 1 interview on March 9 and 1 interview on March 10. It's possible you want to interview 3 a second time. If that's the case, I would suggest we do 2 on March 9 and 1 on March 10. And we just have to start earlier on March 9 to get that done. Okay? All right, I'm going to keep moving on then. March 9, interview a final candidate. That'll be 1 there again. When we do that second round of interviews, the candidate is not interviewed. They will meet with the administrative team. And that's principals, business manager. These are the people that I put in. If you want to have additional people, that's okay. We'd like to keep that group at 10 or less. The admin team will also fill out a feedback form, and that'll be shared with the school board. And then the part 2 there is the candidate will be interviewed by the school board. And again, questions will be submitted by the school board for their questions on round 2. So as soon as round 1 is over, I'll be sending you an email and reminding you need to provide me with questions. We'd like to have about 21 questions for the final interview. And I will give you a set of what I call the top 40 questions. And it's 40 questions that have been used in years past by different school districts to give you an idea of questions you might want to ask. But you can come up with all your own questions as far as we're concerned. Then on March 10th, the same process goes on as March 9th, with the only exception is then you actually have a meeting afterward and make a choice. And how that goes is if you say you want candidate B, we go out in the hallway and we call candidate B and say they're going to offer you the position. Are you willing to accept? Because that's an important thing also for you to remember. You're interviewing them. They're interviewing you too. So that's important to keep in mind. Okay? And then the last thing would be the last page in my packet. The finalist interview schedule. Do you want to do all the things that are on here? When we've been doing virtual interviews, we obviously didn't do a tour. We did have an administrative team meeting with the candidate virtually. We did not have a community meeting as such, but we did it virtually. And that worked okay at LeSueur Henderson. People were asked to submit questions to the board chair. The board chair asked the candidate the questions that had been submitted and any other questions that you might have as a board, and to have them respond to it kind of spontaneously. That's the purpose of that. If it were not COVID time, we would have the community thing be in the auditorium or something like that. We've done that before, and quite frankly, it varies the number of people who are in attendance. It varies from 5 to 25, and it's just whatever questions happen to come up. But it actually did work virtually okay at LeSueur Henderson, I thought anyway.
So in that virtual concept, then we are unlimited to who could sign on at that time frame. Would that be publicized as an hour per candidate, and then we would, people, or are we capable of providing that,
Yeah.
Dr. Carlson?
You'd have to publicize two things. I would suggest two things. Number one, publicize that there's going to be a virtual community input session.
Okay.
And anybody in the community who wants to have a question answered by the candidate should contact the district office and keep it on file until that day.
Okay.
Okay? And then the second piece there is somebody could be watching it virtually and decide, oh, this question hasn't been asked. I'm going to call or email. I think they should probably call it in, and somebody in the office is going to have to be available to take a call that would come in, and then that could be asked as well. We did have one call-in question at LeSueur.
Okay.
The rest are all questions they had in advance.
I was just going to ask if that's, if we're really opening, and obviously we want the community to be as large of a part as we can potentially offer to them, although we want it to be manageable also.
Sure.
Mr. Schultz, I just reflect back to the candidate forum,
Sure.
which this kind of reminds me a little
Okay.
bit of that, where we had it open in emails in advance, and also at the time, you may remember both Mr. Domeyer and Ms. Bentley kind of managing that.
Okay.
The difference here would be, rather than multiple board candidate that we had going at that evening, it would just be one person. But I
Right.
think, that I just reflect back on how we handled that evening. It could be
It
perhaps
could,
something similar.
it could work, do you think, technology-wise, it wouldn't
Yeah.
complicate it? What do the rest of you feel about that? Is there a value to it, or are we working too hard on providing that?
I think it's beneficial.
Sure.
That's fine.
Mhm.
I think it'd work.
I think the more we can get the community involved in the process, the
Right,
we're gonna get better acceptance, and because they've all felt that they've had a part of it,
right.
they've had an input into the process.
Sounds like we'd like to work on that,
Okay,
Carol.
that sounds good.
We can make that flow.
Well, then the next thing on here is the candidate dinner. And that's something that, obviously, if we're back to doing things virtually, that's not going to happen.
Right.
But if you want to, we can work that in. It can be something that you do or you do not do. That's really optional on your part, whether you want to do it. And then the last thing would actually be the interview. And from a board member standpoint, depending upon how you want to monitor your day, I would say the community thing from 4 to 5 o'clock and until you're done for the evening, that's what your board involvement is. You don't have to be around to do the district tour or anything like that. Or the administrative team. So basically from 4 o'clock and on, if we stay with the same time schedule, that would be your time commitment. You're okay with that?
I like it.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right?
So this is when you get down your final two,
Yep.
and then you're doing both the interviews at the same time.
Two separate
No,
days.
no, two separate
two
days,
separate
one
days,
on the
I'm sorry.
9th and one on the 10th.
Sorry about that.
Nope. Good question, so we have it all clear.
If you have 3 candidates, I don't know about the dinner.
Right.
That may not work. If you're gonna double up two
Right.
on one day.
Right.
And that's totally optional. Maybe you
Right.
don't wanna do that. Maybe you
We-
wanna skip that part and just go from the community piece to the school board interview.
I think probably by our first round, we can give after the first round of the 6 candidates, maybe we can kind of feel that question out as far as, is that soon enough to make
So-
that determination?
Sure.
It'd be a week's lead time, wouldn't it, or not quite, I guess, but.
And usually when it says a dinner, usually what most schools have done either, if they have some place in town that can cater and bring
Yes.
something in, fine. Sometimes it's the home ec department that does it.
Sure.
I suppose the home ec, that may be, I'm aging myself. Facts,
We all
facts.
knew what you meant.
I totally understand what you're talking about.
Have they changed something there?
Yeah. No,
Sorry about that.
No.
not home ec anymore?
Okay, that's all I have. I appreciate the feedback, and it looks like we're pretty much agreed on most of the things that are on here. We'll see how things go and we move forward. Okay?
Appreciate the work you've done so far, and it's encouraging to hear that you have those candidates recruited and in position, so thank you for the work, and pass that on to Mr. Waltman also, so.
Will do. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good evening and a safe drive home.
Yep, thank you.
Okay, I think that brings us into the consent agenda items. Dr. Carlson, please.
Okay, we have in your consent agenda, you have the minutes from both the regular meeting January 19th and the special meeting from January 25th. You have 4 bills totaling $1,035,293.15. We recognize some donations from the NRHEG basketball video program for boys and girls basketball in the amount of $998. Waseca City Farm Bureau, donation to FFA in the amount of $100. Mauer City Farmers Mutual, FFA donation of $100. And we thank Cindy Arndt for donating handmade masks for students. So those donations totaling approximately $1,198. Under workforce, you have spring coaching contracts. And you're asked to approve the following: Nate Jensen for JV softball, Dewey Ferber for head track coach, Larry Neidiger for assistant track coach, Mark Kruger for assistant track coach, Brad Rudd for head golf, and Marcus Fisher for junior high baseball. We have some people that are leaving us, and we want to thank them for their service to the school district and wish them well. This is Kathy Breitbart, who has been with us since last year as a paraprofessional. Alyssa Richardson, also from last year as a paraprofessional. And Michaela Helgeson, who this year has served as our health office assistant, primarily at the secondary school. We celebrate and thank the following teachers who have submitted their intent to retire at the end of this school year. Kathy Meyer, elementary teacher or technology teacher, and who has served in the school district for 27 years and education for 35 years. Rebecca Jensen, kindergarten teacher. Becky has served the NRHEG public schools for 32 years and education for 34 years. Sharon Raymaker, the junior high math teacher, and Sharon has served our school district for 23 years and in education for 35 years. So congratulations to those three, and thank them so much for their years of service, not just to our school district, but to education in general, and to so many kids and the influence that they've made on families during that time. We're thrilled to bring to you a recommendation for employment for next school year already. It's a speech and language pathologist, and Ms. Erin Johnson. And we're just thrilled we actually met her in person last week, which was exciting, but we were thrilled to bring her on board. She comes with many years of experience, over 16 years or so of experience, and a master's plus 30 and even more. So we're just so fortunate, and we're excited to have Erin joining us. Also then, in the consent, statewide enrollment options, one student who's moving to our district but continuing to attend the former district and then 1 non-resident student open enrolling into our school district. Okay, so I hope I covered everything on the consent agenda. If you have any desire to have questions about any item or want to act on any item separately, you need to simply request for that item or items to be removed. And otherwise, a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Mueller, seconded by Mr. Schmidt to approve the consent agenda as presented. Ms. Engel, please.
Carrie Engel, aye. Joanne Maloney,
Aye.
Rich Mueller,
Aye.
Travis Rose, Dan Schmidt,
Aye.
Lauren Shanerock,
Aye.
Rick Schultz.
Aye. Motion carries. We've taken care of the search profile, so that would move us into student achievement and student support. Dr. Carlson, please. And Mr. Anderson, welcome.
Good evening. I'm here to tell you just a little bit about some planning that we've been involved with for summer programming at the elementary school. Jess Williams had hoped to be online with us this evening, but something came up and so she was unable to do that. We've been meeting for several weeks to try to determine what would be the best opportunity that we could provide to our students at the elementary for summer programming, keeping in mind all the challenges that COVID has presented to us. And so I'll be sharing with you that plan this evening. We realize that this last year and a half has been extremely challenging for our students. And we also realize that with the change of learning models, that our core instruction has been affected. So to best support our students, we've created a summer program that will provide the academic interventions needed to catch our students up. This program will be tailored to meet the individual needs of our students, but yet will have a fun and engaging camp feel. And so tonight I'm going to talk to you about Camp Panther, a 6-week program that we'll be providing to students. We're going to begin right away on June 14th, which means that our students will have about a week off in between the time that we complete school and we would begin Camp Panther. And we will continue the program through the end of July. As a team, the teachers who are going to be working with this program, the coordinator Jess Williams and I, we debated whether or not to provide the camp during that week, which is right after the 4th of July. I think the 4th of July is on a Sunday, which means probably that holiday will extend into Monday, Tuesday. And so we are going to take that week off. We do not have classes scheduled for that week in July. Camp Panther runs 4 days a week, Monday through Thursday, from 8:30 to 11:30 a.m. One of our goals is to make certain that during Camp Panther we focus very closely on those core reading and math skills. So that will make up a large part of this program, and each child in the program will receive individualized reading instruction through our leveled literacy intervention program, which is a part of our literacy program at the elementary. We will help our students to focus on what they will need to know for the upcoming fall. Camp is always fun, and so we have planned several activities, and summer fun will be a part of Camp Panther. We're looking at some project-based learning activities. We've talked about, there's an idea that some of the teachers for the program would like to yet this spring begin a gardening project that the students would be able to continue through June and into July. There are some ideas they've been discussing regarding recycling. Art projects will be included, outdoor activities. We do plan to provide transportation for students. In the past, when we've had our targeted services program, which we ran during the month of July, we would provide transportation to the 4 communities. We would have one pickup site. Families would get their child to that site and then would bring them to Ellendale. We felt in order for this program to be successful that we need to have basically a door-to-door. So we would be running bus routes for this program, pick up the students in the morning and bring them back home after we've finished. And no cost to families for this. The Camp Panther program, we will have 5 licensed teachers who will be working with our students. There will be 1 teacher coordinator, and that person is Jess Williams. Jess does a lot of the intervention right now with our students, and so likely she will be one of those literacy interventionists. We'll have custodial support available to us, and we will then have 2 transportation drivers. 1 driver that will focus on the New Richland, Heartland area, picking up students, then bringing them to Ellendale, and 1 driver that focuses on the Ellendale, Geneva area, and the intervention coordinator. The way that we'll select students for this program, right now we're just finishing up our winter benchmarking of our students. So we're assessing skills right now at this point, and we're meeting in teams to go over that data as grade level teachers and interventionists and the principal. And so we'll be looking closely at that data, and we'll be looking at the results of our students and determining based on those results who may best be qualified to be a part of the Camp Panther. And we're looking at those students right now who may be 2 years or below their grade level. We will have some costs that we expect with this program. These are estimates to the best of our knowledge. At this point, we've worked with Carla on some of the transportation costs to get as close as we can. The variable right there is not knowing exactly yet how many students will be a part of the program. We've worked with the HR manager in determining some of the staffing costs as well. And then we have a slight materials allotment, and our intent is to provide a daily snack for students. So what does a typical day look like? We'll start the day right away, very similar to what it looks like now, which is a whole group activity for each classroom, a morning meeting. And then you can see through the chart here that number corner is an important part of our math program. There'll be an activity block, and those activity blocks will take a a look at those in just a moment. Those are some of those project-based learning types of things. The LLI is that literacy intervention piece, recess and a snack, and then another activity block, and then a dismissal at 11:30. During those activity block times, we hope to include some music, some STEM activities, those science, technology, engineering, and math, and STEAM activities, which is the addition of arts, read-alouds, activities based on that literacy, project-based learning, some social emotional activities, I think, which that's an extremely important part of summer programming, especially with what COVID has presented to us. We're finding more and more that that's an important piece that we need to take time to separately address. And then some theater and drama as well. A few things that we continue to work on. In the past, when we ran our targeted services program in July, because of our relationship with Waseca Public Schools and some of the programming that they have, we're able to receive some funds when we completed our targeted services program. Many of the students who will be a part of Camp Panther would also qualify for a targeted services program. And so we've asked about the possibility of, even though this program may look a little different than the program that we provided in the past, would we still be able to access some of those targeted services dollars to help cover some of the costs for this program? And we've been in contact with Jake Hager from Waseca, and you can see some of his comments that he has shared with us about that. The Department of Ed is going to be putting on some webinars that will further address some of the questions that we have about being able to access those funds for this summer program. And after we've finished our data meetings, which we will finish up this week, then we're going to look at an enrollment cap, exactly how many students, look at the number of students who would qualify, and then what we feel will be able to provide those services through Camp Panther. Right now, we're kind of thinking in that maybe 22 range for each of those K1, 2, 3, and 4, 5. So maybe somewhere right around 65 students that we would be able to include as part of Camp Panther. And then we'll finalize the transportation routes and be able to be a little bit more close on our transportation costs. So do you have any questions about the program or what we're looking at for this summer?
I just had one. First of all, this is a lot of work was put into this, so thank you. Is this in addition to the special ed that you have usually in the summer? Good question. Our extended services program will continue to run independently of this program, but yet, like we've done the last couple years, we have included them in some of the activities, and I would see that happening. The difference with the extended school year program is that program will run during the month of July, 3 weeks in July, 3 days a week is their schedule. So, yep.
So this might be a stupid question, but once the kids get into the program, they're in for all these weeks. It's just not maybe a week or two here, or one group
Right.
here, one group there.
Right, yeah. But we also realize that families may have things that are already scheduled or planned, so our goal is to just take them whenever we can. It will be presented that here are the dates for the Camp Panther program. Obviously, yes, we want you to be a part of the entire program, but we also understand summer's a busy time for families. Dr. Carlson, anything else I missed?
It's a great job. No, thank you. There was plans originally that perhaps we would be presenting both. The secondary school is working on summer plans as well, which is a little different than what perhaps has even been offered or not offered in the past. But you can look forward to that presentation at the March meeting. These aren't really up for any action by the board at this time. We'll kind of look at as we get into staffing and so on, but often even summer staffing, we often just move forward with that. So there may be some things we come back to ask for action, but tonight's more of a report to see, kind of share what's coming, and then March meeting, we will present on the secondary school. So thank you, Mr. Anderson.
All right, the next item is resolution for reduction in program positions. It's kind of a time of the year event here again. And Dr. Carlson, could you introduce that, please?
Yes. So as Mr. Schultz said, this has become an annual item at this time of the year to ask the board to adopt a resolution directing the administration to make recommendations for reductions in programs and positions and reasons therefore. I'll just briefly read the resolution, and if you have any questions, otherwise then look for a motion to adopt the resolution. Whereas the financial condition of the school district dictates that the school board must reduce expenditures immediately, and whereas there has been a reduction in student enrollment, whereas this reduction in expenditure and decrease in student enrollment must include discontinuance of positions and discontinuance or curtailment of programs, and whereas a determination must be made as to which teachers' contracts must be terminated and not renewed, in which teachers may be placed in unrequested leave of absence without pay or fringe benefits and affecting the discontinuance of positions. Be resolved by the School Board of Independent School District 2168 that the school board hereby directs the superintendent of schools and administration to consider the discontinuance of programs or positions to effectuate economies in the school district and reduce expenditures, and as a result of a reduction in enrollment, make recommendations to the school board for the discontinuance of programs, curtailment of programs, discontinuance of positions, or curtailment of positions. So there's the resolution, and if this would be up for someone making a motion, and second and voted. Questions?
Could I have a motion then to approve the resolution for reductions of programs and positions, please?
So moved. Second.
Motion made by Mr. Schmidt, seconded by Mr. Schoenrock to adopt the resolution for reduction of programs and positions. Ms. Engel, please.
Terry Engel, aye. Joanne Maloney,
Aye.
Rich Mueller,
Aye.
Travis Rouse, Dan Schmidt,
Aye.
Lauren Shanerock,
Aye.
Rick Schultz.
Aye. Resolution has been adopted. Moving on to the 2021 budget revision. Dr. Carlson, please.
And I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Christopherson, who I believe is on with us.
Yes, I am. Good evening. Can you hear me okay?
I believe so.
Yep.
Okay, good. So this document, it gets a little cumbersome some, but I'm trying to just keep the history up there. If you look in the top left section, that's the budget that you adopted last May. At our last budget revision, we talked about the items below that, resulting in the middle column, the revised budget numbers. Tonight, I'm just going to touch base on the items below that in that middle column, making up what results in a budget revision. We're just focusing on the general fund tonight in that top right corner. But again, if you take it back to that middle column and we look at the revenue adjustments, you've seen a couple of these items before on the donation list. The first one, we increased the revenue budget for a grant that Mr. Anderson applied for and we received from the city of Ellendale as part of their CARES flow-through money. The next one, I worked with the Waseca County Administrator, providing him with our numbers, and we were able to obtain that figure, the $12,923 from Waseca County. The other counties responded and said, you know, thank you for the request for dollars, but they weren't able to provide any. If you go down to the expenditure section, I just tried to group a number of things so we didn't have to talk through too many things while still giving you some good information. Administration, contracted services, sub-costs, a lot of these four things have to do with people and just adjustments that are happening along the way this year. As we get down to that CARES money again, the grant that he applied for purchased the smart board for the Ellendale building. And then we used the money from Waseca County towards an HVAC upgrade that took place in both buildings, kind of an enhanced air exchange system, so to speak, without getting too technical. Supposed to help with, you know, keeping that healthier air quality. Election, we can bump that up just for some final costs that came in. And staff development, some reduced expenditures just based on what's happening this year. And then so on and so forth. Kind of hit different categories: maintenance, supplies and equipment, travel. That travel is for many of us that typically attend a lot of different things, different meetings that we've been able to do virtually. Transportation, that's just kind of where we're at to date. You know, there's a number of transportation things that have not happened. While we've still been able to maintain keeping our route drivers busy through these closures, because oftentimes we're delivering meals, we're still delivering homework, and we're helping students in need. And so it's just a lot of other things, from activities to shuttles to field trips and whatnot, fuel. So we've made that reduction there, and hopefully that will. The last one, just being a copy of these that our tech director was able to rework for this year. Basically, our leases were up, and they took a look at our machines and realized we could do another year out of them, and that's gone real well today. So, if you take the above number increase in revenue and then below the reduction in expenditures, you know, the net effect, it's going the direction we want it to at this point in the year. So, does anybody have any questions?
Well, whenever the board is ready, we would be ready to accept a motion to approve the budget revisions for the 2020-2021 budget. Just approve the budget revisions as presented, as Carla has done tonight.
So moved.
Second. Motion made by Ms. Maloney, seconded by Mr. Schmidt to approve the 2020-2021 budget revisions as presented. Is there any further discussion? Ms. Engel, please.
Terry Engel, aye. Joanne Maloney,
Aye.
Rich Mueller,
Aye.
Travis Rao, Dan Schmidt,
Aye.
Norm Shanerock,
Aye.
Rick Schultz.
Aye. Motion carries. Dr. Carlson is going to present our secondary school in-person learning transition plan. Dr. Carlson, please.
Yes, thank you. I'm going to step in this evening for Mr. Buzz, who's unable to be with us tonight. He has done much of the work with this, with key staff leaders as well. And so I'm just going to walk through this for the board. And, in previous board meetings, the board has given direction and the authority to make some decisions and move forward with planning, and that's been ongoing. And so tonight, the secondary school has developed plans to transition, in the end, all students to what we will define tonight anyway as in-person learning. But until you get later into the plan, most immediate in-person learning still is defined as 4 days a week at this point. And but eventually we have plans and hopes to move to the Wednesday morning, like the elementary school has too. But also at this point, based on what we know, throughout this, the Wednesday afternoon for both buildings will continue to serve as planning at this point. But let me just walk through some of this, and I think we continue to work closely with the Department of Education, the Department of Health, our regional support team, our county public health officials throughout the year, and we continue to do so. Most recently, working with our regional support team, we received, if we go back, and I have some dates down here below, we walked back a ways, if I can scroll this. Back in January, we did the rolling start to bring our elementary in, and which I think continues to go very well. And then January, at the end of January, we had met with our regional support team. I had already reported this out to the board with the board support to begin to make that move for grade 6. And so there was support and good partnership on that. So as you start to look at the list here, the rollout schedule, I will admit that we have included some things on there that has already happened. But we thought that just to kind of put it all together with the secondary school. So if I jump down, and number 1, January 26th, we brought grade 6 students in 4 days a week. But there are very specific strategies, safety, health standards that we have in place there and continue to do so, beginning with they're more isolated in their classroom. They're eating in their classroom, much like K-5, bridges through grade 5. The same kind of measures for grade 6. And at this point, we continue to plan to do that at this point. At that same time, grade 12, you may recall, the board had some discussion. We have brought students back, grade 12. And currently, though, as we speak tonight, those so-called hybrid safety measures are still in place for grade 12. But we know that as we march forward, that will change just because of the space limitations that we have. Last week, we communicated out and made plans that resulted in what started today with grades 7, 8. But that included even for grades 7 and 8 last week on Friday to really not have school for grade 7, 8 students, so teachers could plan for that transition. That happened. We went forward with that, and even in advance of tonight. Grades 7 and 8, They were both sets of hybrid days, as well as we surveyed parents and got input as far as if they had an opportunity, especially the students that were full-time distance learners. If they have an opportunity, would they have their child to start attending 4 days a week? And so we've done, I don't have, I apologize, I think Mr. Bunn probably would have had the statistics. I don't have the exact numbers with me tonight. But just a quick observation, talking with a couple of the teachers key to grades 7 and 8, it seems like it went very well today. A few bugs, maybe around lunch and so on, but overall pretty well. And just to be clear, we worked with our regional support team through things that we had discussion. I felt that there's that general support, even acknowledging at this point that the mitigation, what we call mitigation strategies, have changed. That we are making that decision, starting with distancing. And so we're just acknowledging that. So how are we able to move forward when guidance has not officially changed for middle and high school grade levels? We have reason to believe that there might be an update this week, perhaps even as early as tomorrow, and we'll see what that brings. We also are aware of what the CDC most recently came out with schools. And as you may have noticed, in their recommendations to open schools, return students, the distancing is still in there. And so we're moving forward. We're going to maximize the distancing as much as we can. If you would come at the lunch hour today with grades 7 and 8, you would see that we're still making efforts to distance. And even if that means we're trying to find some other areas for kids to eat. And so, but I just want to acknowledge that we just are not able to do this, maintaining the 6 feet in all areas, but please know that we are doing everything possible to continue to maximize that as best as we can. So looking ahead, we look at grades 9 through 11, and we are planning, we are targeting a March 2nd date, much like we started today with grades 7, 8. And so to do that, we are possibly looking at a planning day for grades 9 through 11 staff, which would be right now perhaps on Friday, February 26th. Grades 6 through 8 will be in session. So much like what we did last Friday for 7, 8, we would be doing something similar for those other grade levels. We are in the process of, I think tomorrow, surveying grades 9 through 11. And so we'll be getting that feedback. Similar question that went out some time ago to seniors as well as grades 7 and 8 2 weeks ago or so. So we'll learn what is that number beyond the students that are in hybrid learning. How many of our full-time distance learners would choose to come back if we had that capacity? So we're taking this carefully, thoughtfully, strategically as we move through this, but that is our goal to start making that transition and move on March 2nd. We talk about a priority list, and that's just because, you know, similar to even going back to seniors, we had to just see what the numbers were. And seniors were a little different because we were still looking at a goal of that 6-foot distancing. But similar to grades 7, 8, we just need to know what we're going to be working with, because down to that classroom with teachers, it really is important that we know, have a good handle on how many students we can expect to be in person. So beyond our target of March 2nd, we are looking ahead to address Wednesday mornings. And that would be the next phase in this, to open up Wednesday mornings. And perhaps as early as March 10th for grades 6, 8, and then following that would be for the rest of our students. So, you know, there's been a lot of work and thought put through this. I feel there's general support. I know that at any point, you know, there could be things that develop that we're just going to have to do our best to address. And you know, no matter what, throughout all this, we know that as long as we are continuing dealing with the pandemic and people still being exposed and so on, when it comes back to our staffing, we know that that's still a potential issue that can happen anytime. No one's fault, but the reality is we need to be able to adequately staff our school buildings. And so even at the elementary level, the same thing is. And so we just hope that we don't have those issues moving forward. I think that we've said this a little bit to staff and to others, that moving forward with this, we probably, the so-called hybrid learning model, where 2 days a week and so on, if we can push this through and make this happen, I'm not sure that we would be returning to that. I see that if we have the inability to adequately staff a building or a grade level or a portion or all of the building, it's pretty much we're having students attend in, or we're going to have to take a temporary distance learning for whatever period of time until we can adequately staff. So we're envisioning not really returning to that hybrid, so-called hybrid model moving forward, if that makes sense. So we are bringing this to you tonight, and granted, some of it has already happened. We've already moved forward, but we thought that it might be good to have present to the board, answer any of your questions, and then ask for approval of this plan moving forward. So why don't I probably was not nearly as smooth as what Mr. Bunn how he would have presented it, but I will do my best to answer questions. And so, questions the board has.
If, and I emphasize the word if, we have to go to, like you said, distance learning because of staff concerns, would you go distant learning on the classes that are affected, or would you do the whole student body, or would you do just that grade, or what's the thought process on making that move?
Yeah, an excellent question. I don't know if I have an answer this evening. And I'm not, you know, we've talked a little bit about how do we do that partially. If we think about the elementary school, we didn't really prep for this conversation, but Mr. Shamrock, excellent question. I don't know. I think we would just have to address it at that time. Is it conceivable that we could keep grade 7, I'm thinking of this building, for example, more generally middle school in session, perhaps. It's just when we start sharing teachers with multiple grade levels, that will be possibly a challenge. But so if we have a department, if English, I look at Ms. Bentley back there, so if English is somehow more impacted, what happens there or versus teachers just spread throughout? With the elementary grade levels, you know, we've experienced earlier this year with quarantines, and that's a different question, perhaps, where we have been prepared to quarantine a single classroom or a grade level, which happened. It happened in this building too. I don't know if there's a sure answer for that tonight.
Okay.
But thank you for pointing it out. It's been part of our planning and discussion, and I think it's just one of those that we just have to do the best we can at that time. And it will be, like in the past, it will likely be could be a very quick decision.
Hopefully with our vaccination program and some success there, that we're narrowing up that opportunity though for those situations. And again, it probably can't say we don't need to be prepared, but hopefully the idea behind that and with that tone of schools opening back up is the thought that staff was prioritized to receive the vaccine. So hopefully we're going in the right direction to keep that under control.
Good point. Yes, thank you.
I have one question. Once we get kids back into the buildings 4 days a week or 3.5 days, whatever, is there a possibility that that Wednesday afternoon will go away and we'll have them all day Wednesday? Or is that going to be with us for the rest of the year?
Another good question, a question that we've been asking and trying to think through for some time, quite honestly. You know, the intent of that requirement via the executive order is for, beginning with, teachers who are having to really do 2 types of instruction and plan for that at once. So most notably, especially at the elementary school, that you know, I have to plan for the full-time distance learners in one method and one way to do that, and I have to come back over here for kids that are in person. And so I think one of our questions, Mr. Mueller, is at what point, how low of a number might we get to that, I'll use the extreme case, 1 student, full-time distance learning. We're still, for example, the elementary school, I think we're still in the 20, I think we've gone down, but we're still in that 20, a little over 20, somewhere in that area. So that number is coming down, and so I think at some point that will change. I just don't know what metric or what number it's going to be at this time. With the secondary school, there continues to be a higher number of distance learners, but in some cases, the style of instruction isn't as different as you might compare it to the elementary, if that makes sense. Many of our full-time distance learners are on with the teacher, with the rest of the class, and so on. And so it's still, though, that part where the intent of that order is to provide teachers separate time to do their planning that they need to put in place for those full-time distance learners. So I can't say tonight when we might anticipate that ending, if it's going to be still this, before the end of the school year or not. But we are watching that closely and trying to get that answer. At what point do we need to reach to perhaps work with our leadership as far as our teacher association, and go back from that MOU that we looked at earlier, I think October and November. So again, no definite answer tonight on that, but one that question's with us, and we're continuing to monitor that.
Okay.
Would the board endure a comment from me?
Mr. Schultz?
You're welcome to make a comment, yes. Mr.
I only want to say that it is indescribably demanding to be working with sets of students in those different settings. The students who are there in the hybrid. So at any one time, I'm working with a group of students, and of course I'm using myself only as an example here. I'm working with a group of students in front of me, and then I have some folks online who are in my classroom half the time, and then I have other folks online who are in my classroom not at all, except in distance learning. And I can tell you that I think most of us teachers go home utterly exhausted at the end of the day because of all of the different demands and the many directions that we feel pulled in because of the various settings. And so I feel as if the extra planning time is justified in terms of keeping up with those many demands and trying to make sure that all of the many things are taken care of. And so our membership will of course entertain any requests to change the memorandum of understanding that allows for those Wednesday afternoons. But it's very, very difficult to describe the extra stresses that all of these various learning models impose on the teaching staff. Thank you.
Appreciate that. And that's what we will charge our administration to work with that leadership and make that transition, and they will know best when that time comes. And again, the memorandum of understanding will be a mutually agreed upon adjustment at that time. So good question though, Rich. So if there are any other questions, we can wrap it up here and get this approved. Again, it's a work in progress, but I don't want to short anyone from any questions on the learning model, but I think we're familiar with this. This has been out for a week or so, and any other things that we would like to conclude with? Ms. Engel? Nope.
I have a question.
I have one.
Sure.
Quick one. Yeah, if I'm reading this correctly, once we do get transition back, there is essentially no more distance learning students. Am I reading that correctly? So once we can transition everybody back, is there still a distance option for
We
families?
still are, we must
still
provide the option.
Okay.
Yep,
State mandate, I
Yep.
believe, might be added to
Correct.
that. I don't want to talk out of turn, but I
at
think
least through the rest of this year.
Okay.
We're waiting, we're already talking, districts, and you might have already read, are we anticipating something to plan for next fall even? So, but at least this year.
Okay.
good. Would there be a motion to approve the learning plan as presented then?
So moved.
Second. Motion made by Mr. Schmidt, seconded by Mr. Mueller to approve the secondary school in-person learning transition plan as presented. Any further discussion? Ms. Engel, please.
Carrie Engel, aye. Joanne Maloney,
Aye.
Rich Mueller,
Aye.
Travis Ralph, Dan Schmidt,
Aye.
Lauren Shainrock,
Aye.
Rick Schultz.
Aye. Dr. Carlson, am I under the impression that there are really no school activities updates or facility uses that
We don't have any update
That's
for
fine.
you tonight.
Right.
Just wanted to keep that on there in case the board had any questions but we have nothing to present.
Any questions on either of those two subjects? Again, I think we're all kind of aware, kept up through the process on that, but don't want to cut anyone short for the opportunity to ask. All right, if that's the case, then that will conclude our open session of the meeting this evening, and would ask for a motion to move into closed session for the purpose of conducting a mid-year performance review of the superintendent as authorized by MS 13D.05 subdivision 3A.
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay. A motion made by Mr. Schmidt, seconded by Mr. Schoenrock to go into closed session. Ms. Engel, please.
Carrie Engel, aye. Joanne Maloney,
Aye.
Rich Mueller,
Aye.
Travis Ralph, Dan Schmidt,
Aye.
Lauren Shainrock,
Aye.
Rick Schultz.
Aye. We are now in closed session. Thank you everyone for joining, and if we could ask the board members to click out of this, and you have a separate invitation to go into for the closed session, so please take care of that now if we would.